Should I move it underneath? Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
Hello. Welcome.
Hi, Melody. We need 100,000 subscribers so we can have custom emojis. Yeah, that would be cool.
Why 100,000?
I know. It doesn't seem like it's that big.
Oh, that would be too bad for YouTube. Sucks.
It's something to look forward to, though. Custom emojis.
Sure.
Bobby's going to be all over that.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Patreon live stream. Thank you so much for being $8 patrons. We could not do what we do without you guys. We're so excited. There's so much that we are going to be able to do because you guys support us. So I just want to start off by saying thank you. And let's start talking about some stuff. We have a lot of stuff to talk about.
We do. So we got Melody, we got Nathan, we got Jeffrey. Hey guys, what's up? And I guess one of the first things I want to talk about since Jeffrey's here is the newsroom. Jeffrey is one of our members of our newsroom. He helps us every week to find cool stories and stuff. And if you guys here who are patrons are interested in joining us on the newsroom, if you think that that's something that sounds like fun, please message us and let us know, and we can invite you to the newsroom. Let us know like what you think you bring to the newsroom, and maybe just kind of tell them a little bit what it is that we do in the newsroom.
Sure. So the newsroom is a Slack team that we put together.
What's a Slack team?
So Slack is a...
Sounds like it's where you just don't do anything.
Well, it's quite the opposite. So Slack is a program. It's kind of like an instant messenger.
Slackers.
It's kind of like an instant messenger, except instead of it just being like I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, or like an email where you have to send it to particular people, there are like little chat rooms called channels. And each one of those is labeled. So we've put together, I think we're up to like 12 or more than that, channels where we talk about different topics of the news. And so it's really great because we've always kind of had, or not always, but at some point we started to get people contacting us through Facebook, sending us news stories that they thought were interesting, especially from their corner of the world where, you know, we're not going to read like, you know, the Dusseldorf Times or whatever. And so, yeah, it's really similar to Discord. It's a little bit less chatty. It's a little bit more businessy. I don't know if that's a good descriptor of it, but anyway, yeah, we've been working. So basically, people would send us all of these articles, and then
which was great, by the way.
Yeah.
The only problem was that if think about this for a second, like as we were growing and we were getting more emails and Facebook messages, and it would be like, hey, check out this article. And then even though that's super cool, the problem is that every week we usually get the same article or the similar article
like 10 times.
Right. And we'd have to like respond and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So this is cool because everyone can see, oh, that article was already posted by someone.
Right.
You know, and so
that frees everyone up in a way, because now everyone, since we're all on the same team now, yes, it is free. Good question. Now that everyone can see what's going on, I think the most interesting thing here is that people can like not only just post the story, but now, since you were about to post the story anyway, you can now do some research. You can be like, oh, interesting. Let me look up some facts about this or that, you know?
Yeah, so like last week, we were getting ready for the show and we were like, oh, this would be a really cool story, but it'd be really cool if we knew this.
Right.
And we posted it on the newsroom. We're like, could someone just research this for us? Literally, was it like 8 minutes later?
Yeah, we had like 5 or 6 responses from people in the newsroom, which was
and they went out and found sources, found answers, and we were able to tie it all together. It felt like we were in a giant newsroom where we're like, go check this out.
Right.
It really is amazing if you think about it. Like when I just stopped this week and thought about it, I'm like, okay, not only are there like, it's about 50 people. Not only is it like 50 super intelligent people, they're from all over the world.
Right.
They all have different perspectives. They all hear different things.
Right. They're up at different times of the day.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it's just like a constant stream of news and
now they're talking to each other, which is great. Like now they're bouncing ideas off each other and commenting. And so we can hop in on a thread and kind of read and then put in our 2 cents. And
right. It really helps us develop our opinions, because I mean, a lot of people think that we're just like, as soon as news happens, it like gets transmitted into my brain, and then I'm just all of a sudden like, oh, I'm an expert on this. Like, no, we have to do all sorts of research and reading, and having a newsroom that's like, oh, I've already parsed this for you. Here's the important bits. And I'm like, do I need to read more into this story, or is it good? You know, really, really helpful stuff.
Yeah, because can I talk a little bit about news and also noise? So like, there's news coming at us every minute of every day now, right? And I don't think we've realized it, because it's like being a lobster in a pot. Like, it's gotten warmer and warmer and warmer, and now we just don't realize that it used to think back a few years ago. The news that you get would be from, say, CNN, like 24-hour news, right? That was the news stream. Now it's Twitter. So now it's like instant news stream. We're talking instantaneous. If Elon sneezes, we know about it instantaneously. So, but that's noise, most of that. You have to sort through to find the little tidbits, and then you have to somehow piece those together to form the actual story. And if you're trying to do a YouTube channel with news, then you're constantly trying to figure out, what is the actual story? Do I want to just spew out what you've already heard on Twitter? Or do you want us to try and piece together the actual story? And that's what we're trying to do every week. I'm not saying we accomplish it every week, but we're trying every week to figure out what's happened during the week and give you what we think is actually going on. Because if you were to just watch Twitter right now, you would think that, oh my God, there's all these problems. There's whistleblowing, and there's SEC violations, and there's all this crap like FUD, and the Tesla's falling apart, and Elon's not getting enough sleep, and I think he's on weed. And like, that's because that's all that seems to have come out. You have to put that in perspective with, okay, well, he did an interview with Marquise Brownlee, and he didn't seem to be crying, and he did seem very tired, but he didn't seem to like be saying that, oh my God, the world's falling apart. Then there was a cool concert that happened the other day at Tesla. Like, there's awesome positive things going on. So you have to say, okay, New York Times article, okay, that tries to paint one picture, but actually there's not a whole lot of beef to their story there. There's not like a whole lot of substance.
We're vegan.
Okay, there's not a lot of vegetables in that story. A lot of
bean paste.
Yeah, there's just a lot of innuendo. So you have to figure out, with all the stories, piece it together, and the best we can figure out what's going on,
what the truth is.
And to go back to our newsroom, we now have 50 smart people that we can bounce ideas off of and get their 2 cents about, who aren't just FUD people, who aren't just people who are like tweeting out retweeting the
and aren't tweet. People who are just you and I mean, just the two of us, because honestly, we can't skim through all of it. My eyes just aren't fast enough.
No,
and neither is my brain.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it's I think, especially in the past few months, it's definitely become way more necessary. Because I mean, when we first started, the news was like, oh, I heard that they're going to come out with the Model 3. That's cool. Awesome. Moving on. You know, it was like, there was no like, it was not as day to day as it was. And that brings us to our next point. So when we started, we had Brent and Bobby, and they were not super experienced video editors.
No, not at all. They learned on the job.
So when we were like, let's make a news show, we were like, well, we're gonna need to have editors edit it up and ship it out. And we're like, what can we expect to do? Like, when are we going to film it? So we decided we're going to film it on Sundays. And then we were like, okay, well, how long will it take to make an episode like that? And it's like, I don't know, maybe by Tuesday. So they have about 2 days to work on it. So that was our first idea. It was just like, oh, we'll do the news show. Then there'll be 2 days of editing to make sure that they have time to get it out. And then we'll ship it. And then, and that worked pretty darn well. It certainly has worked out. All of you lovely people seem to have enjoyed that.
But yeah, that whole time, Jesse and I were feeling like, because we record on Sundays, and then In Depth comes out on Monday. Tesla Time News
even
on Tuesday.
Before that wasn't before In Depth.
That's true.
So then we added In Depth, because at one point we were like, I want to talk about this thing, but it would take up half of the Tesla Time News episode and make it an hour and a half long. So we were like, okay, we'll have just an In Depth piece that we try and do every week, and then that'll come out on Monday. And so then we've been doing these in-depths and Tesla Time Newses, and we've been able to get Tesla Time News out and ready like by Monday, with also doing in-depth. So what we figured out was, well, the news is pretty darn important. It's important to have the news come out as soon as possible, because there's been a couple days where, you know, we've recorded the news on Sunday, then something happens on Monday or Sunday night, or
Right.
you know, whatever, you know, on Monday, and then the news comes out on Tuesday and it doesn't have what happened on Monday, and we've just been like, ugh, you know, having it come out on Tuesday. It's one thing if our news comes out at the same time that something exciting happens, but we were just like, you know what, we really want Tesla Time News to come out on Monday. So that's why Tesla Time News is now going to be a Monday show, and the in-depth is going to come out on Tuesday. And
we've been, so behind the scenes, we've been wanting it to happen for a good long time, but we've had to figure out ways to make sure that the boys weren't totally swamped. They get in here early on Mondays to edit up the show. It takes, we do not speak perfectly, by the way. So when we're doing the show, and you probably see all those cuts, those edits, they have to physically like cut every time that we screw up.
Right. And then I screw up all the time.
Right. So first of all, they go through the whole show and they chop out all the ums and the screw ups and the times when we did a joke that didn't work, whatever. And then they go back through, put in all the cool graphics, and then they go through and do some jokes if they have time. So it's like they do a tremendous amount of work. And if you think about it, like no one would want to watch the show, us talking for 40, 50, 60 minutes, if it was just podcast style. Like that gets pretty dull if you don't have it cut well and put in jokes and put in graphics. So they do amazing work, and we didn't want that to suffer. So that's why it's taken us a while, but we're really excited now that it's coming after 100 episodes.
Yeah.
We've now been able to get it to come out on Mondays. And I think that's, I don't know. I think we're always pushing to try and improve the show. We're always adding stuff. If you remember, there's been times when we've added stuff and then taken it out. Remember we used to have Brent and Bobby talk from a cell phone?
Oh yeah.
We'd have them read off
a tweet. Yeah.
And they got tired of that. I think our viewers got tired of that, so we cut that out. That was our effort to try and get Brent and Bobby on the show more, because we think they deserve to, you know, be seen. But they're so busy with their own vegan cooking show. So
yeah, and I mean, we've been constantly working to improve the show on our end, because I mean, it used to be that we would have to get the camera, get the microphones, get batteries for the microphones, get batteries for the cameras, get lights, get batteries for the lights, go out to the car, and then we would have to set everything up in the car, right? We'd have to suction cup lights to the windshield, and we have to put the camera there, and then we'd have to hook up the microphones, and we'd have to get headphones, put the headphones on,
check the levels.
and then we'd have to check the levels, make sure that it sounded good, because if one of the microphone batteries was low, it'd sound like and then we had to, you know, it was just like,
and we had a little, and it was this before we had a little teleprompter, right? We first did it with just notes.
Right. We would have notes. Then we had a little teleprompter that used my phone, and the teleprompter app would just chew through batteries. So we were in trouble.
And our phones would get so hot.
Right. And we had like a little, we still have the little remote to make the teleprompter move. It was, oh my gosh. So we've constantly been making improvements.
Oh, and then just remember how it would either be super hot in the car.
Yeah.
We'd have to turn the AC until the show started. Then we'd have to shut off the AC.
Right. Because otherwise you just hear this constant like.
Right. So we would just start sweating until we got so hot that we'd like take a break, usually cool down the car again, or the opposite, have to heat up the car.
Right.
Yeah. And at some point we're like, why are we doing this in the car?
Yeah. It did not make sense, because you couldn't barely see the car half the time, because we were doing it at night, because it was, we'd write the show all day.
Right. So then we did it inside here on the couch.
Right.
And I don't know, doing a show on the couch like that, it doesn't feel quite right.
Right.
I really feel good behind the desk now, and having a solar desk and now having the backdrop the way I want it. Like, it's taken a while to get there, but I'm really happy.
Right now, as we speak, the cameras are all set up, and we used to have to rip this room apart, right?
Move the couches.
We'd have to move the couch out of the way, right? Get the desk there, move these chairs over, get lights, get cameras. It was a nightmare.
And then Monday morning, the boys would have to put the room all back together again. Right. They hated it. So
and then, but now we finally have it, so it's just a room that's just set up, and we can just walk in, turn on all the lights.
I had to convince my wife to let me use that room. That, you know, might affect my marriage, but other than that, for the show, it's good. I just want to read some of these comments because so basically we got Captain T in the Philippines. Hello, he's one of our hugest Patreon supporters. So thank you for joining us. And again, like this is so cool. We're talking to people from around the world
right now.
Yeah,
that's so neat.
And then we got one here. What was it? Footnut guy is asking, are they paid? No. Are you talking about Brent and Bobby? Brent and Bobby are paid. Yes, they would have left a long time ago.
I was like, wait a minute, you aren't paying?
Yeah, they're paid. We are not, but they are paid. Yes. And we did see the Musk interview with Marquise Brownlee, and that I gotta say, can we just talk about that for a second? Because we've both seen it, right? Kind of weird because it was great that it was unedited. It was largely unedited. Just two cameras rolling the whole time, and Elon was his typical self, having trouble getting thoughts out immediately, but also he was so tired. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I did feel that way.
It's also interesting to see Elon around someone who he really admires. I think he really does admire Marquise. So I think that he's talking to him as like almost like, wow, I'm in the room with him. I got that sense. Did you get that sense?
I'm not sure. I don't know. But I think he was just excited to do the interview. He knew that it wasn't.
He wasn't going to be attacked.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be a lot of questions about, the 420 thing and stuff like that. It was about the exciting stuff about the cars. And
right, which is the whole
right
freaking point.
But what I liked about it was we have all, if you follow Tesla, you've heard all these things before, and you might have been like, well, that's a boring interview. But as I was watching, I'm going, okay, wait, this is Marquise Brownlee's fans. This is 6 million subscribers who normally are watching, phone stuff.
Of course.
And so now they're in the factory with him, and they're hearing about these new upcoming, like they may not have heard about the Roadster or the Model 3 much. So like this is good advertising.
Right.
And then to talk about advertising, have you guys seen, we're going to be posting it on this week's news,
Unboxing Therapy, right.
Unboxing Therapy. Now, for a lot of you might not follow that channel. It's a 12 million subscribed YouTube channel where he does unboxings of all kinds of cool things. He unboxed a Model 3 Performance, and he just couldn't stop glowing over the car. And so he's got 12 million subscribers. When I tuned in the first day, there was 1.5 million people had seen it already. So all those people, that's a free ad for Tesla.
That's true, right?
And it's more than an ad. Their personality that they like, they trust, is saying, I love this car. Like, wow, that's a game changer.
Right.
Let's see. You got wiser. Well, maybe it took us so many episodes.
Yeah, I think it wasn't.
Was it wiseness or was it laziness
or something? Yeah. It was just very slow, but constant improvement.
Melody loves how we have it set up now. Thank you, Melody.
That's good.
I really like having stuff a little out of focus behind us. It keeps your eye, I think, a little interested as you're watching the show. I'm not a big fan, and Jesse isn't either, I don't think, of the green screen. A lot of YouTubers will put themselves on a green screen and they'll have something moving, which is cool. But I think we all know that that's a green screen, and we all know that that's not real. I think it's nice that that we're in a real place.
Right.
And also, the things behind us have meaning for us. So when you're watching the show, like, we didn't just throw crap up there to look pretty. Everything there has a meaning, and we keep adding stuff.
Right.
I don't know if you remember, like, the bottles of beer from Sweden. Like, those were sent to us, and they're Starman bottles. Like,
right.
It's so cool to have that stuff behind us.
Yeah.
Now it looks like an actual show, not just two guys chatting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would it be possible to bring back the Off the Grid podcast? We get asked this about once a week, and I really would love to, and we're going to. A couple problems. Rich Rebuilds, the car guy, the car guru. We met him when he had like 500 subscribers, right? And we brought him on the show, and he had plenty of time for us then.
Yeah.
He is super busy now because he seems to be rebuilding every Tesla known to man.
Right.
So as we've reached out to him, he's just so busy. It's hard to get him here at the same time as all of our other buddies. So we will do it, but it's not going to be a monthly thing, I don't think.
Probably
not. Yeah. But we're working on it.
Yeah.
When was this Elon interview? I'm going to check that out. Yeah, that was Marquise Brownlee. Go check it out on MKHB.
It was like 4 days ago, so it's not like you're out of the whole loop.
No.
You ever done model rocketry? Yes. I used to be a rocketry counselor at a camp. So, yes.
Yeah.
I made a 3-stage rocket.
Did you?
Yeah, the first stage barely got it off the launch pad. So I did not do any math. All right, what else are we going to be discussing right now?
Oh, yeah.
We've got a list of things.
Yeah. So did you guys read the New York Times article interviewing Elon? It came out, I think, 3 days ago. It's a big article because they claimed that, over this hour-long interview with him that he broke down into tears, and he was just stressing out about how he's been working 120 hours a week recently. And they painted a picture of an Elon that wakes up in the morning, tweets something out on his drive to an airport without really thinking about it first, that's overworked, barely makes it to his brother's wedding. And if you reread the article and you look for where they cite their sources, almost all their sources are either him in the interview saying something, which they don't actually quote him much because I don't think there was that much interesting in that 1 hour, or they cite people who are familiar with board members. That's a very common quote in the article. It's like, people familiar with the board say, I'm familiar with the board. I know all the members of the board. What, you're going to quote me? Like, they claim, they're worried that he's on Ambien. They're worried about this. They're worried about that. I think that's way too removed for a New York Times article.
Yeah.
That's something you should read on BuzzFeed or some other crappy news source. You expect that on that level.
Yeah.
If at New York Times with 4 top reporters, this is the level that you get, then stick with the interview you did.
Right.
You got an hour with him.
Right. I mean, how could you not have interesting things to talk about with him? He's the most interesting man in the world.
Right. He was willing to sit down with you, New York Times, and talk to you for an hour. Right. How about just give us a transcript of that?
Right.
That would have been interesting. But instead, they do this like painted picture that he's in trouble. They say that he's under federal investigation. Okay. First of all, he's in an SEC investigation. As a giant company, you have SEC looking at your stuff all the time.
Right.
In the past, the SEC has looked at almost every big tweet he's made. So again, to say that he's under a federal investigation, that's really going too far,
right,
in my opinion. SEC subpoenas. SEC is constantly asking your company for stuff. That's just normal. To call it a subpoena is really, as we all know from watching legal shows, like a subpoena is a big deal. Like, oh my gosh, I have to hand over this information. As a company, you have to hand over information all the time. So again, this whole article paints a picture which I don't think is true. I think it's very misleading. But they want to do this because FUD.
Right. And we talked about it in our in-depth last week about just the level of just ridiculousness that we're seeing. And it's the hardest part, I think, even for me, is to contextualize it, to like be able to like take a step back and be like, okay, I just read an article that said that it's basically the end of the world. And then I'm like, okay, is it though? Are you sure? Like, let me just think about this for a second. And after about a minute of being like, okay, let's just think, is the SEC, is that a crazy thing for him to be? It's like, no, this isn't that bad.
No,
this is all good stuff.
And I want to point out that this happens all the time, especially with Tesla. There's a concerted ramp of stories that builds and builds and builds. Stock price drops and drops and drops. It becomes a self-fulfilling thing. Oh my God, Tesla stock is dropping. And this new story came out. And then guess what happens? They run out of crap. Right. And then everything goes back to normal for a while.
Right.
They're doing it again. You're in a hyped up cycle right now. Why? Because there's a lot of money involved right now. If you want to get into Tesla, and a lot of people do, you have to get in at whatever price it is on the stock market. So if you're willing to spend some money to get the price down, you can get in cheaper.
Right.
I know that sounds to you and I, we're like, what are you talking about, Zach? I can't do that. No, we can't do that.
Right.
But the powers that be, the big people, the big players, they can. And it's not that hard for them to get an article out or to get someone to do a whistleblow.
Right.
There's 2 whistleblowers right now at Tesla, right? That are big stories. One we've known about, Martin Tripp. And that guy is just throwing mud at the wall, and it's not sticking, but he keeps throwing it. The latest bombshell is that the batteries going into the cars are, he knows now which VIN numbers they are. First of all, as Tesla stated, he didn't have access to that information. So even if he wants to make that claim, he wouldn't have known. He didn't work in that department.
Right.
So that's just more stuff he's throwing against the wall. And he has a reason to do that. He's got a lawsuit against them. He's trying to clear his own name.
Right.
So of course that's what he's going to do. The new big bombshell story about whistleblowing involves an employee that went to Tesla, told them his information. They investigated the information. They couldn't corroborate any of it. And there's one piece left that they can't corroborate, and that's because it comes from one guy who we won't give up the name of. So we're dealing with third-hand information. And if you look at the information that we've been given, oh, Tesla spies on their employees, stolen stuff. This is a giant corporation. I'm sure all corporations from time to time check out what their employees are doing. I'm sure all corporations have things stolen from them. This is not a big whistleblow kind of story. Mm-hmm. And yet the media picks up on it, and we have no corroboration whatsoever. We're just going on this one guy, this one employee. And why is it a national story? Because it's supposed to tie in with all the other stories.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do every week with you guys. We want to give you the news, but we also don't want to just keep piling on what you're reading on Twitter anyway. We want to try and give you the context of what's actually going on. The real behind the scenes story here, you guys are some Patreon supporters, so we'll let you in on this, is that the price of the stock right now is unbelievably low, and it's been pushed low. It should be at $4.19.
Right. Yeah, there's very little reason that I can see that that Tesla won't go private. They're going to buy the stocks out at $4.20, which means that, they'll buy you out. Please
don't sell out. I mean, go long. Stay with them when they go private.
It makes sense to go long because, just look at the trajectory of their company. It's exponential, which is insane. It's just insane.
I want you to go back and look at a stock chart for something like Amazon, and I want you to zoom in. Don't just look. When you zoom out right now at a stock chart for Amazon, you're going to see a long, low line before it starts to do this. But I want you to go back at, say, 2006, 2008, and zoom way in so that now you get all the ups and downs. And what you're going to see is that it looked like the stock was already going exponential. It was already getting way too expensive. It's not flat. It was actually going up where people were saying, can't possibly be worth this. Mm-hmm. This is a company that no one even buys stuff from Amazon, right? Do you remember like 2006 Amazon? Did you guys buy all of your presents and all of your things on Amazon? I bet you did not. And then along came like 2008, and more people were buying stuff on Amazon. But still, it was overvalued. This company's there's no profit. It's just pouring money. Now you go back and you go, well, that was brilliant. Right. They're building up this company. And now they own the entire market.
Right.
Like they are the player.
Yeah.
Now it makes total sense. But do you realize how many people at that time were saying, this is the craziest, you can't build a company like this, blah, blah, blah. That's what's going on with Tesla. It's completely disrupting everything. Nobody out there understanding. Nobody out there understands it. All of these talking heads that you listen to don't understand it. They don't know what the value is. Talk about value. Look at the value that was placed on companies like Waymo. Look at the values of companies like NVIDIA. These companies are valued incredibly high, and they shouldn't be unless you understand what they're doing.
Right.
But no one spends a whole lot of time saying that they're overvalued.
Right.
Because it's not sexy to talk about. NVIDIA,
right.
Like they're a chip maker.
Right.
Their CEO isn't doing that like crazy stuff like making rockets. So
right. It's not that exciting.
Right. So
it is exciting, but it's not like that exciting.
Right. And then you hear about Waymo. Every time you hear a story, they're in the forefront. They're leading the way in automation and autonomous driving. It's great. I love Waymo. They're great. But let's keep in mind that they can drive a car in Phoenix, Arizona. They've mapped out Phoenix, Arizona to the last mailbox.
Yep.
And they can drive a car around in it. That's wonderful. But that's not what Tesla's doing. Tesla's trying to make it so you can drop a car into the middle of anywhere and it will be able to drive.
With roads.
Right.
Yeah. The military is working on just dropping the car in the middle of anywhere.
That's true.
But Tesla's working on just the road part, at least as far as we know.
I would like to just touch on the SEC lawsuit, the SEC investigation.
Right. And by the way, it's SEC.
Right.
But when you say SEC, it sounds like SCC.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. It's
and I've always been like, what? I've looked up SCC. I can't find anything.
Sorry, I say it fast.
No. everyone says it that way.
Yeah, so he's asking a stupid Brit question. What is SEC? The Securities and Exchange Commission is the federal agency that's in charge of making sure that publicly traded companies are doing things above board, right? So anything that's publicly traded, they are the watchdog for that. And it's just run-of-the-mill everyday stuff that every single day they're going to be asking companies to back up some statement they made. The biggest thing that the SEC is in charge of is making sure that there's no private exchange of information. You don't want what's called insider trading. You don't want Elon to tell his buddy, guess what, we're coming up with the Model 3, buy some stock. That is illegal. If Elon wants to tell something, he has to tell it to all of us. Right. So what he did on August 7th was he wanted to talk to some of his biggest shareholders and ask them what they thought about going private with him. But he can't legally do that. He can't call up Jesse, the head of some big hedge fund that owns a lot of Tesla stock, and go, Jesse, what do you think about going private? He can't do that until he tells all of us shareholders. So what did he do? He tweeted, I'm thinking about going private. Here's the stock price I want to go private at. And I think I've got funding secured. Now I'm going to go talk to Jesse.
Right. So then 8 minutes later, the whole world knew about that tweet.
He has
the whole world.
He has 22 million followers, and then every news organization on earth picked up on it. So if you wanted to, I mean, could he have sent out a press release? Yes. This was actually faster. Right. So he did that. Now the SEC has asked in the past when he's tweeted out big things like this, was that legal? Did he do it appropriately? And every single time they've come back and said, yep, that's right. That's fine. Yeah. It's just that this is a new world. Most CEOs don't use Twitter in that way. They usually tweet out like, you know, hope you like our new product, but they don't usually tweet out big. Right.
Hope you like IHOB.
Right. So this whole SEC thing, and everyone in the know knows that this isn't going to go anywhere. They're just using it to fan the flames of, oh my gosh, he's under investigation. Right. It sounds really sexy to say that, doesn't it? Federal investigation. Right. Doesn't mean anything. Also, these lawsuits, they don't mean anything.
Right. I can sue anyone for anything.
Right.
And it's still a lawsuit.
Right.
It might not make sense financially for me to do that, but hey, I mean, if big oil was supporting me to sue someone for some reason, then I would do it, you know?
Right. Yeah, and this is, so Riley's asking, do you guys know what the latest rumor about when a bunch of articles were saying Elon is taking recreational drugs? This is exactly what they're trying to get you to do, to talk about things that have no importance.
There's no, why aren't those articles talking about like, have you seen / driven a Model 3? Holy crap, it's going to blow your pants off.
Right.
Because that is the story. That is it. Yeah, that is the most important thing about Tesla right now is Model 3.
Here's what, if I was a reporter for the New York Times, I would be going to Ford and to GM and going, what are you doing to fight off this new
Model
competitor?
3, right, exactly. And then
are they asking that?
Oh, we have the Bolt. And it's like your Bolt sales are getting completely dragged through the mud. You aren't even producing the same number of Bolts. You know, it's just like, you know, like what? And I just have to harp on the Model 3. It was the car. It needed to perform. It needed to be the car, and it exceeded my expectations.
Now, I realize that most of you even here right now haven't probably even gotten to sit in one yet. So I know that you're probably like, okay, guys, I know you've said this a lot, blah, blah, blah. But everybody who's gotten their Model 3 writes back to me and sends their pictures and goes, oh my God, you were right. And that's why we post them every week, because if we were wrong, you would have heard of it. Like, we would print them. We would put a guy going, I got my Model 3 and I hate it, guys. They don't, no one says that.
I have not heard anything.
Here's another FUD thing. We heard about the 2 Model 3s that lost their bumper. First of all, a guy tweets out to Elon, my bumper came off. We don't know how the bumper came off. We don't know if he backed into a wall. We don't know anything, but he tweets that off. And then another guy's like, oh yeah, my bumper fell off too. Okay, so that's 2 cars out of tens of thousands of cars. What other car company do you know of where that would be a story? If GM was like, 2 bumpers fell off at GM, you wouldn't hear about it. It happens all the time. You don't hear about it. Again, why? And everyone wants us to cover that. It's like, well, it's not even a story. We don't know what happened. Like, we don't know that it was rain that caused that.
It wasn't a scientific test.
And I went out to my Model 3 bumper for 5 minutes and I tugged on it. I was like, I want to see, is this thing going to come loose? I couldn't get it to budge. And I mean, I'm a lot heavier than rain. Like this. So, I mean, I'm not saying maybe they put those on wrong. Maybe those two cars had them glued on wrong.
Right.
But it's just, first of all, it's just a bumper. And secondly, we don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's not like the wheels fell off. It's not like
Right.
they got into a terrible accident because of it. They were fine.
Yeah, I would like to. So, you know, I think what we're going to be doing for this week's In Depth is to kind of go the opposite of where the rest of the press is going. And that is, I sat down to watch a TV show last week, and maybe you guys have had similar experience. You fast forward through the commercials nowadays, at least I do. And as I was
watch TV, I don't know what the hell you're doing. But okay,
I'm an old school. Is this new show? I like it.
Okay.
I'm fast forwarding through the commercials, and the first commercial I'm fast forwarding through, I spot a Tesla. Like my eyes are like tuned to Tesla, so I see a Tesla. I'm like, wait, what? I go back, I watch it. It's a Turo commercial. Turo. First of all, I was surprised to see a commercial for Turo. Turo is a website where you can rent cars of any kind, and Teslas are heavily rented on that site.
Right. And you're renting from
the owner,
not a renting.
And we have
company.
a bunch of friends with Teslas that do that, and they make really good money, and it's fun for everybody. So I was watching it, and they're talking about how you can rent all kinds of cool cars, and one of the cars they feature is a Tesla Model S. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. We're actually watching national television, and this is one of the cool cars you can rent. Right. So I was like, yeah, okay. So then I go back to watching my show. The next commercial break, I'm fast forwarding through, and what do I see? A Chevy Bolt. And I'm like, oh, does Chevy advertising their Bolt? Because I've never heard of that. So I watch it, and it's a VW Electrify America sponsored commercial. So what is that? So VW got sued for Dieselgate. They were forced to spend billions of dollars to pay for their damages. And one of those things they had to do was basically fund Electrify America, which is a company that's going to be installing chargers throughout America. And I guess as part of the settlement, they had to start advertising that they're doing that. So in this commercial, which we'll be featuring on the show this week, they show a Chevy Bolt pulls up to a stoplight, and this same guy, but in a more, I don't know how you describe him, like a crinklier version, like a dustier version,
a worse for wear version. Yeah, he has a tree hugger bumper sticker right above the tailpipe,
and basically it's playing the Flintstones. Are you guys old enough to watch Flintstones? Meet the Flintstones. Right. It's playing that, and so we're implying that he's the old Flintstones. Right. Then it starts playing the Jetsons theme song, which is another cartoon.
It's the same
so obviously they're aiming it at me.
Right.
They're aiming the. I mean, I am the demographic they were aiming at, and it shows. They switch over to the Chevy Bolt, where his alter ego is driving the Chevy Bolt with a dog in the front seat, and off goes the Chevy Bolt through when the light turns green, and it says, this is the future. These cars are fun to drive. And then it shows all these other electric cars. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to see a Tesla in there.
No.
And I rewinded it 6 times, and I watched it in slow-mo, and there's no Tesla.
There are cars that you can barely get your hands on. Like there's the
Mirai, there's a Honda EV, which I don't even know which one it was. There was a VW e-Golf, which they don't make anymore. They're not going to make that anymore. And they put that in the commercial.
Yep.
So I was super happy. I was pumped. I was like, they are saying that electric is the future.
Right.
This is a commercial that people are going to watch and go, wait, what?
Right.
And I don't care that it's just a Chevy Bolt, except on some level I do. I mean, I'm angry at whoever the people who are in charge of that should have been forced to put on the number 1, 2, and 3 selling cars in America. Even if you didn't want to put on the Model S or X, you might argue, okay, those are very expensive. You should put the Model 3 on there.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Right.
Still, this is amazing. Do you realize what just happened, folks? A national advertisement. This is how most middle America gets their information, is starting to see that electric is the future.
Right.
It's fun to drive, it says. It's better. I was like,
right.
So, yeah, they can keep throwing FUD over on Twitter and all this stuff, but it's working. We're winning.
Oh, yeah. I mean, electric is going to be, it's the future. We know it, and we know that everyone's going to switch to it, even if they don't know it yet. It's just it's so cool to know that, when I talk to someone about cars, it's going to be like, yeah, your next car is probably going to be electric, if you buy a new one. It's neat to.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
When you tell that to people, and I tell that to people, this is the response I get. What?
Right.
What?
It's like if I was like, I don't have an analogy in my head, but let's come up with one.
I think it's like, if you want to go back to a cell phone, it's like if you said your next cell phone will be a smartphone back in 2008.
Maybe, I guess, or just like telling people like, oh, everyone is going to have these someday, and people being like, no, just rich people have the cell phone.
Well, and here's the someday part.
Right.
I do get some people will be like, well, eventually I'll probably have one.
Right.
But they think that'll be in like 2040 or something. And I'm like,
yeah,
no, you won't even have an option to buy a new gas car very soon.
Right.
It's going to happen so fast.
Right.
Because let's go back to this whole Tesla going private thing. I know there's a lot of controversy now. Should Saudi Arabia be funding this? One way or the other, rich people are going to fund this. Any smart rich people are going to fund Tesla because they need to switch from what they're doing now to what's actually going to be happening in the future.
Right.
These oil companies that get it, and most of them do, are going to be putting their money into this because they see the writing on the wall. They have to do it quietly, but the writing's on the wall. So what does Tesla need right now more than anything?
Yeah.
Factories.
Right.
They've got the technology. They know what they're building. Even if they stop building, even if they just built X's, S's, and 3s, that would be fine. Right. But I mean, they're not even going to stop there. But they need factories right now to pump these cars out, right? They've got winners. They need to pump them out. So where do you get the money for factories? Go private, and billions of dollars will come in and be like, here's my money. Please build factories.
Right.
And guess what happens when you build factories fast enough? All the other car companies go out of business.
Right.
This is what's going to happen. It's not going to take decades.
And they don't need to build the same number of factories as the other car companies, because they just need to build enough factories to put enough of those other companies out of business.
And then they'll get their infrastructure.
They'll get those factories. They'll be buying up factories for nothing, just like they got the Fremont factory.
Elon learned his lesson there.
Right.
He's like, oh, wait a minute. I can walk in and get the keys to a factory with robots in it if I want.
Right.
All I have to do is wait till another company can't make money anymore.
Right. And I mean, they can do this globally because VW is in huge trouble.
Yep.
Like that should be the national news all the time, is that VW is just constantly, it's like they're just being run by Hydra or some evil corporation that's just constantly like, oh, how can we get ourselves in more trouble today? Oh, I don't know. Why don't we try doing this? It's just like,
and here's the thing.
Right.
It was unbelievable. You couldn't, if you're from Germany, you cannot believe that VW or any of the big car companies there will fail, because that is your economy.
Right.
So you're like, no. And whenever you say, no, that can't happen, you're not basing that on anything other than what you want to have happen.
Right.
So yeah, it is going to happen, especially if they keep going at the rate they're going. And so Tesla will walk in and they will it'll become Tesla BMW factories and Tesla VW factories.
Or previously owned by VW or BMW. Right.
Right.
Exactly. It's going to happen in America. It's going to happen in Europe. The only place it's not going to happen in is China, because China is like, let's make electric cars, people. And they just,
hello, Mr. Musk. We would love to. And look at what they're so smart in China. They partner with companies that they need the intellectual property on.
Right.
So they're like, yes, Tesla, we need to know how you make those cars. So come on in.
Well, they're not partnering.
Well, but they are. Let's be honest. I mean, they're not. This isn't a partnership, but this is the first step to getting in on how. I mean, they're going to tear those cars apart, and they're going to make very Tesla-like cars, which is fine with me. That's what Elon wants. He doesn't care. That's why he opened up the copyrights and the patents, because he's like, sure, I don't care. Just make them quickly so we can get out of this problem.
Right, and that's what he originally wanted. This is the thing. He originally wanted the GMs, the Fords, the Toyotas to all be making electric cars. As soon as, the Model S came out, showed that it was a viable option, he was kind of expecting, I think, he was expecting for them to be like, oh, all right, well, let's make something like that. And they did not do that, or at least not fast enough. They were just like, all right, we'll put a few more miles on the Leaf, or, okay, we'll make some stuffy, we'll take one of our Ford Focus and we'll put some batteries in it and it will be very good, or anything like that. Because like talking about the Leaf, like they didn't even put heat management into it.
Right.
And so those cars are not going to last.
Interesting. Footy Nut Guy just said, does anyone know if Tesla is featured in a non-news show, maybe a drama show? I was watching HBO's Succession, which is a 10-part big mini series release they had. And in it is featured very bigly a Model X in a bunch of episodes where it's the luxury car that the all the kids are like, can I drive the Model X? Can I drive the Model X? Dad, can I have the Model X? Yeah, it shows up every now and then. It's showing up more and more in shows. I'm always trying to watch for like it.
Right. And do you know why? Because the people who are making those shows drive those cars, and they're like, this thing is awesome. I want to show people, but I make a show about drama things, so I'll just put it in there.
But do you realize they're only showing up on things like HBO or Netflix, things that are not sponsored? These aren't TV shows that go through the normal, CBS shows, ABC shows that are sponsored by Ford and GM, because they know that they're going to have to get sponsorships. And if they feature a Tesla, Tesla's not going to pay for an ad.
Right.
So that is why they don't.
Right. So nobody asks how Elon is doing. I think that we have a sense of how Elon's doing. He's not doing great.
Can I point out a couple things about him that his brother said about him, and his uncle said about him? He treats sleep not as a reward, but as something he has to just get done. You and I think most of us here are like, I get to go to bed.
Right.
Like, yay, I would like to sleep as long as possible. Elon, when he used to work at Zip2, would fall asleep under his desk on a hard concrete floor with just a thin pad of carpet over it. And he would ask people to kick him in the morning to wake him up. That's not a guy. That's not normal. That's a guy who wants to just do stuff.
Right.
And so it's paying a price. You can't get into your 40s. I'm his age.
Yeah.
I'm a year older than him. You need your sleep. You need to take care of yourself. And he's not. You can in that last interview with Marquise Brownlee, he needs to eat better. He needs to sleep better. You can see it's a very puffy Elon there. He needs to be taken care of. But he's got a young girlfriend. He's got 5 kids. He's got a whole mess of companies. He's not taking enough care of himself.
Right. I think that he's capable of not taking care of himself. He's proven that he can.
He can, but I mean, it does take a toll on your psyche, and that's why we saw him. Sleep would do him a lot of good. And here's what he really needs right now: 2 things. He needs a chief of staff, and he needs a number 2 at Tesla. The chief of staff person, he needs to follow him through all of his days for all of his companies. It's a protector. It's a consigliere. It's if you watch The Sopranos, it's the guy you turn to get advice from when things are at their worst. It's a guy you can trust, and that is your person. I mean, why does a president have a chief of staff? It's a necessary position. It's a person that goes out and faces the world for you every day and gets the things done that you want. You don't have to make the phone calls. He does, or she does.
Right.
At SpaceX, he's got a number 2, Gwynne Shotwell. She handles the day-to-day. She is amazing. He needs that kind of person at Tesla so that he doesn't have to be doing all this tweeting. The person who is Gwynne Shotwell can be doing that.
Right. Because
she is level-headed. She knows what he wants, and then she figures out how to get it done.
I mean, they especially, I think it's harder for Tesla because for SpaceX, people are like, oh, I love space travel, space. So there's a bigger market, I would imagine. And to be like, doing what they do at SpaceX it's inspiring. There isn't anyone necessarily attacking SpaceX as often.
Right.
You barely ever see that.
As soon as you go private, that's going to help a lot.
Right.
But it's okay. I mean, there's number 2s at all big companies, and they're used to that. You need to find someone that he can trust that will do this day to day. It'll take such a workload off him. He'll be able to do what he's good at, which is just showing up on the factory floor and solving problems.
Right.
He's not as good at the political, like how to do an interview and how to, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So yeah, if we could clone Gwynne Shotwell,
right.
But I want her to stay. Everyone said that she should, because we did a post, on Patreon this week asking who you think that should be. Someone even said me. Thank you. I would gladly take the job if he wants, but I don't know if I'm cut out for it. But Gwynne Shotwell was also mentioned. Problem is, we need to keep her at SpaceX. That's an important company.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she knows what she's doing with rockets. We need someone like that at Tesla. I mean, people also said Kimball, his brother. Yes, they can trust Kimball and stuff, but Kimball's into his own stuff. And I just, I think he needs someone that he trusts like Gwynne. I don't know who that is, but all right, we got to wrap this up. Do we have any other questions here before we go? Jesse could be the number 2. What do you think, Jesse? Do you have the skill? I don't know if Jesse's organized enough. You're definitely smart enough, but no. I think you and Elon would just talk all day.
No,
we wouldn't get enough done.
No way. No way.
Who else do we have there?
Let's see. The national commercial, the one that you're talking about. I agree with Jeffrey here that they were basically required to.
Oh, of course, no, right. I mean, they would never have featured a Chevy Bolt.
It wasn't because they were like, oh, we're just so excited to show off these electric cars. It's because basically they had to.
Right. I'm sure their argument for using the Chevy Bolt was, well, it's the best-selling electric car as of last year, and this price range in this thing with this range. Like, they probably have some justification for why they didn't do the Model 3, and they probably needed to do that now. I think next year, if they do this commercial, they'll have to have the Model 3 in there. I mean, maybe the only other thing you could argue is Tesla has a charging network. They're building out their own charging network, so maybe they don't have to feature cars that don't use their charging network. I don't know.
Maybe. Where is the charging network?
Where is it exactly? And someone sent me an article last week that said Chevy Bolt does 2,000-mile road trip. So I read it. Took 16 days. Every day they stopped, they stayed at a motel or a hotel with a charger. Jesse and I did a 16-day road trip. We went 8,000 miles, and that's stopping in San Francisco for 5 days.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, you can do a road trip in a Bolt for 2,000 miles. 2,000 miles won't even get you
across the country.
You can barely you can't get down to Florida and back from where we are on the East Coast. Like 2,000 miles is a wimpy road trip.
Right.
Come on. We talked freaking 25 state road trip.
Right. I mean, we did half of that road trip in a day. Right. We did 850 miles one day. We were just like, oh, I guess we went through all of Montana today. Like that was, and we did it in a freaking day.
And we did this 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when there wasn't the charging network there is today. Now,
no, exactly 2 years ago.
I've
been getting things have been telling me, look what happened 2 years ago, and it's like us in San Francisco, which is very cool.
Yeah, but do you remember when we look at the map now of all the superchargers?
Oh yeah,
we would have had so many more choices today.
Yeah, we took routes that were risky.
Yeah, we were some of the first people to take certain routes, like in Eugene, Oregon, like that no one had really done before, and we hypermiled because we're so afraid that we wouldn't make it.
And then we ended up with plenty of juice left in the. But anyway, like, oh, it's just.
But this gets back to the Chevy Bolt.
Right.
I just like. That's a great car. It's electric. I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad it's available to people. But it's not in the same realm.
It can't be the primary car.
No.
It just really can't.
And can I also talk about this?
Yeah.
The Leaf versus the Model 3. Again, I'm not a naysayer against the Leaf. I love that you can buy them used for under $10,000. Okay. And I think they're wonderful for getting around town.
Mm-hmm.
But we just took a Leaf to go for a 60-mile drive. And it was like, we'd gone back in time. We were like worried about range, worried about keeping the air conditioner too high. The noise from the motor is so loud. It doesn't handle that well. There's no autopilot. Then when we got back in the Model 3, we're like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
The Model 3.
I drive a Leaf every day, right? I drive it to work, drive it home. I drive to the grocery store, and then I charge it at my house. I got to borrow the Model 3 and go on a road trip to Provincetown, the very tip of Massachusetts. And oh my God, is it just so nice? I just get in and I'm just like, like I could make it to Provincetown and back with the range that I started out with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I stopped at a supercharger on the way, but like didn't need to.
And talk about autopilot.
Oh my God. You know, hundreds of miles just melt away into nothing.
Your grandmother just got the Model 3.
Right.
She said that it feels like it's an extension of herself. Like,
I've never heard a grandmother talk about anything being an extension of herself.
I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just, and she's driven electric cars. She had a BMW i3. She had the Nissan Leaf.
Yep.
So, I mean, she knows electric cars.
Right.
And now she's just like, she doesn't have to worry about range anxiety. She came to our house the other day. I'm like, do you want to charge up, Nana? She's like, I don't need to charge.
Right.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
Melody says she drove from Florida to Utah in one day.
Wow.
Holy moly, Melody.
I guess you can do that.
Wow, in her X74D? Wow.
75.
Oh, 75D. Okay. Yeah. I was like, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's
awesome.
And you must have loved it.
Yeah.
And I bet you couldn't have done it without autopilot.
It was not one day. Okay. Yeah. All right. I was like, how fast were you driving, Melody? Question before you go. Fully loaded non-performance or fully loaded performance? I'm not ready
I'm not really going to notice much of a difference using it as a daily driver. Okay, right. Yeah. So
yeah,
I mean,
okay. So I've driven the Performance. I got to drive it for about 10 minutes, and it was amazing. But honestly, the Model 3 is normally pretty amazing. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
I have a Performance X, so I know that speed very well. And would I give it up? No. But do you need it? No. I mean, like
you absolutely don't need it. I would say that you could get away with the base model.
It's a $14,000 upgrade roughly. So it's a purely a question of whether you've got that extra cash lying around and whether you're gonna get that much enjoyment out of that 14,000.
Yeah,
it's enjoyable
unless you're gonna be racing people or taking it to the track. I don't think you really need that at all,
because the base model is so peppy. I mean, it's hard to describe. I don't know what you're driving now, so it's hard to tell you. Like, if you've driven other Teslas, maybe you'd understand. But like, and that's why it's hard, because many people haven't been able to test drive these cars yet. The good news is that I don't know where you're from, Sean. If you're in the U.S., I think there's about 100 showrooms that have the Model 3, and so go schedule a test drive, because that will tell you.
Most likely, you're going to get a Performance Model 3
for the test drive,
right?
But you can probably put it into another mode or don't floor it, just so you can feel the.
Maybe
that's a good point. Like, how do you feel what it's like if you're in a Performance? Can you put it in
chill? Chill
doesn't tell you.
It won't tell you. So I mean, from experience, though, I can say that you.
Forester. Okay, yeah, you don't need you don't need the Performance. You might even be dangerous if you got the Performance.
Yeah, like I think it depends on, if you have the Forester, you have Eastern Pennsylvania.
Although can I tell you? So I was driving home from a concert the other night. It was pretty late, and we were going from Route 95 to Route 93 to Route 95, and there's this weird off ramp on ramp thing. Anyway, we're following a guy from Maine. He took the wrong off ramp, and then he decided, oh, I'll just switch. And as he's switching, I'm now parallel to him. So I'm like, oh, crap, he's going to hit me. I have two choices, right? I can't go to the left. There's a guy there. I can either brake or I can speed up.
Right.
And in my calculation in my head, I went, I'm going to speed up. And I floored it. And in a nanosecond, I was out of trouble.
Right.
I would have been crushed. I would have been hit. There would have been a giant pile-up accident, because there was braking was not an option. There's a guy behind me. So like in that case, I was pretty glad I had Sparky. I don't know if Sparky wasn't a Performance, if I could have gotten out in time, probably still, because it's all about the torque. It's all about the instant acceleration. Right. There was no waiting. But yeah, electric cars rock.
It's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think you need it. I think that you want it, but you don't necessarily need it.
Can I just end on our 2-year-old nephew? When he comes over, he drives around in our little Tesla for kids, and he loves Sparky, and he loves all things Tesla just because he gets to ride in the car. And
he's 2 years old, right?
He loves to see the Falcon do it. And we share videos about the Falcon Heavy launches, and he totally gets it. Little kids, when we go to shows and stuff, little kids, whether they're 2 or 4 or 8, they totally understand this whole thing about electrics. And that's because they haven't been taught anything else. I mean, they haven't had enough time to learn all the arguments against anything, right? They're starting, that's their clean slate. If we all could somehow erase all the preconceived notions, crap,
right? Exactly.
And just start where we walk out one day and we're like, okay, this Tesla doesn't pollute. It drives amazing. All these, it's safer than any other car. Why would I drive this?
Right.
It's a piece of crap. Like it's polluting our environment.
Right. It'll break down.
We are going to war to fight for the thing that fuels this one. Like, you would just go, what are we, crazy? Let's just build these. It totally just makes sense. It's just that we've all just been alive for too long. We've all just been involved in this society that just has so many wrong conceptions about things. That's why we need you guys to go out there and to do the multiplier effect for what we're doing. You are watching the show, awesome, but get out there in your cars and show them that the Teslas are amazing.
Right.
And go get the Teslas. Like, your next car has to be a Tesla.
Right. Yeah. Or at least electric. I mean, there are options.
No, there are obviously.
But I mean, yeah, it's hard to compete, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Wesley says, I have the Gen 2 Volt and love it. Would love a Model 3, but even the rear-wheel drive model has a crazy monthly payment. But that's because you're looking at a monthly payment right now of the premium edition with all of the long-range battery. Go back in like January when they start offering the shorter range battery. The base price will be $35,000, and I'll bet that monthly payment won't be as crazy. And sooner than you think, there will be used Model 3s on the market.
That's true.
And when used Model 3s go on the market, they will not be $35,000.
Right. Yeah.
And here's the thing. Tesla owners love to upgrade. So as soon as the Model 3 has some crazy new thing, they'll be selling their old ones, and you'll be able to pick them up cheap.
Yep. Captain T said, do you have enough Roadster visits scheduled to hit all 50 states? I don't think we're going to hit all 50 states.
We're probably going to have to go through all 50, though, to get to them all.
I don't know if we're going to go to Alaska or
we don't
Hawaii,
have any holders in Alaska or Hawaii. Right.
Which is good because the car can't get there.
Well, I would love
as far
to.
as we know.
Well, you can ship it.
True.
That'd be fun.
Okay.
I would love an excuse to go there.
Right. We haven't like scheduled when we're going to be doing those things because we don't know when we're going to get the car. We don't know any of the details. We need to get the
right. We might get the truck first.
I think we'll definitely get the truck first.
Well, it's all up to Tesla.
And then we need to build the
because let's be honest,
trailer for
one weak link in all of this is that Elon's timetables are usually off.
Sure.
So,
but
we
I
just
think
don't
the
know.
Roadster comes last. I think.
Maybe. I don't know. Which company do you think will be the next to offer a compelling EV? I'm going to guess it'll be a Chinese company, like the NIO ES8. That's compelling. Look at this. It's a SUV in the style of the Model X because they love Tesla and they're copying them any way they can. It's half the price. Its starting price is $68,000. If you could buy a Model X right now for $68,000, and if you had the money, raise your hand. Who would buy one? Like so,
right.
I think a Chinese company. Now they're not usually as good at certain aspects like safety because they don't have the high standards. But when you have the skateboard battery pack, and if they're just going to copy Tesla anyway, they're probably going to be. So I don't know. I'm putting my money down on some Chinese company.
I would say that it's probably going to be one of these startups that we've been seeing.
Oh, that's a good point. Like Fisker or
I don't know about Fisker. I haven't gotten a warm fuzzy feeling about Fisker. They've been just going for the super luxury cars. I mean, I'm talking about compelling for me. So, I mean, Unity, obviously,
that's true.
They're talking about coming out with more than a 2-seater,
right? Up to a 5-seater,
which sounds amazing. And
no, that's a good point because Unity, I kind of always took off the plate because they weren't going to build to M1 standards, which are the safety standards that you need to put on American roads. But they just recently said that they are going to build to N1 standards. So maybe I'd actually change my vote to Unity because that car is so different than anything that we've seen, and it is compelling for many people. Like you wouldn't. It's not a car that would compete with, say, the Model 3.
Right. But
if you just needed a get to work and around town car, it's very compelling.
Yeah, I would say, somewhere between Unity, like Arcimoto, Electromechanica, all of those guys, they're starting with small EVs. Right. I think that they're working in a different way that Tesla did because Tesla started from the very top, right, making Roadsters and Model S's and X's, and now they're working their way down to the Model 3 and finally Model Y and probably a $25,000 car at some point. But starting from the other end, working your way up from there, I think that's smart because Tesla is making demand for electric cars.
And people are going to start looking at other things.
I think that they'll be successful.
I just want to talk to Wesley here because he says, been looking at a used S or X with a free supercharging can justify payment without paying for charging. You're making a wrong assumption there, I think, Wesley. A lot of people do this. They think, oh, free supercharging, that accounts for a lot. It's nice to have, but you don't use supercharging as often as you think. I mean, we've met some guys who use it on a daily basis.
Depends on where you live. If you live next to a supercharger, maybe you're going to use it all the time.
But let's be honest. For just normal use, you're going to park it at home and charge it at home from 90% of the time. And it costs about a quarter of what it costs, depending on what state you live in, to charge versus gas up your car. Because it's so much more efficient. I
went to the gas station with my friend the other day, and he paid like $42 in gas, and I was just like, oh my God.
Right. I got the bill for Jesse driving to the Cape and stuff the other day. He supercharged, I think, 3 or 4 times, and I think it was $12.
Right.
And he drove the entire weekend. Like he drove crazy. Like
I drove down to Rhode Island. It was everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a quarter of what he would have paid, less than a gas car. So the free supercharging, it's a nice thing. It sounds cooler than it is. We've supercharged a lot in Sparky. It doesn't. I think we saved $800 on our cross country trip.
Right.
What we would have spent.
That was 8,000 miles.
Right.
Like that's right. That's what you could do in a year.
So I mean, maybe Wesley, you're planning on doing nothing but like
driving. If you're doing nothing but driving and you're doing long distances,
maybe
not
it's
just,
worth it.
Small back and forth trips.
But you'll save the money anyway, is what I'm saying, just on the price of electricity.
Yeah.
So, Captain T says, I'm retired military, so I actually did mean all 50. My car was even transported to Germany.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So yeah, we might need to talk to you about logistics.
Yeah.
All right, we're pretty much ready to wrap it up.
Yep, I think we're ready to wrap it up.
Work on the news.
Yes, but thank you everyone for helping to support this show. We hope that you enjoyed getting to talk to us.
We enjoyed your questions
directly.
I really love just hearing your thoughts and getting your questions. It's really cool.
So anyway, just thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come talk with us and watch the news every week. It's just like that's awesome. So
thank you guys.
Yeah, we'll see you next month. We'll have to schedule another thing. I think that there are some people who are on the other side of the world right now where it's very dark.
Right.
Who don't get to watch this. So we're going to need to schedule a time when it's dark where we are so they can watch. And we'll try and figure some stuff out. So.
Yeah, we'll do a late night.
All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.
See you guys. What time would that be? Let's see. So